this and share it also for people who may miss this, that I am recording this in audio and video, and they may be used by me for the creation of future content. By attending or participating, you acknowledge that we're allowed to do this. And however, if you play original music of yours, I will be pausing the recording because it's your music and we don't want it like ending up on someone else's place. So I will be switching off the recording for any of your personal original music so that you're protected and I can share this like I've been doing. So, of course, if anyone wants to bow out, you can. So, we're here to talk about the ginormous elephant in the living room, which is AI and the future of music. Is it going to replace all of us and we're going to be sitting around, wondering what happened? Or are we going to be using it as a tool? And we have some really great people here to talk about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a couple of things, not to frighten you, but to share with you just how epic this conversation is. And, we're going to kind of get into this a little bit. So I'm just moving around. First of all, there's a law coming through Congress right now that's not this, sorry. That is what's called the No Fakes Act. Can you see the No Fakes Act?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there is something that is coming along that is being lobbied around by both sides of the aisle, as they say, to protect artists like us, creators like us, to protect our creations, our image, our sound, our likeness. And it's something that has unusually strong bipartisan support. But as with all things in Washington, D.C., it's taking a while. I had no idea that this actually started in 2024. But as we speak today, the Grammy Academy and many others are in Washington, D.C., lobbying Congress as they do. And it does show a lot of support because no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's something that affects everyone. And what it will do is that it'll create a standard to protect voice and likeness. It'll prevent unauthorized deepfakes. It'll hold companies more accountable and ensure that creators stay in control. So, this is very idealistic. As we know from life itself, that people kind of usually ask more for forgiveness than permission. And so, with that in mind, I'm going to just share some of the things that pass by me every day. This was just recently posted on a thing you can subscribe to for free, by the way, called Music Business Worldwide. And it's just news of the day, and it's read by insiders in the music business. And the platform Deezer says that there are 75,000 AI generated tracks coming in every day on their platform, which is almost half of their stuff. And this is just from 2 days ago. So, it's something that I've noticed that, usually when there's an innovation, people jump in and they ask, they wait till they get caught or wait till something happens. And it's the same thing with bots and streaming. When, we've all heard about Spotify and how people have been caught using bots to just over and over play a song that they wrote so that they, get all the minute percentage of streaming royalty built up. And then eventually they change the algorithm and it knocks it down. And you can't really fight all of this stuff. I think there's a net of just being true to your own art and your own thing and building your own audience. And while there's a huge move toward this right now, there's also a huge move away from things like this. So there's that. Not to bring anyone down with that. There's also this is happening. I think you can you all see this? It's a press wire thing that there's a performance organization that is looking to be like BMI or ASCAP, but solely dedicated for AI music. And I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but we're going to be, all kinds of people pop up just like they did in the early, first wave of the internet in the 1990s and the internet bubble, just like people had MySpace, and then MySpace became Friendster, and then Friendster somehow ended up at Facebook, and now Facebook has branched out to a lot of things. So there's a lot of movement going on in the culture right now. I'm going to just go to what BMI is doing, and this is how, if you create a song, this is what BMI is saying. That what's copyrightable and payable is that, and obviously Gary, who's here with us as a guest, is going to talk more about this because he's been really become an expert in both creating original music with original musicians and using AI as a tool. Fully generated AI obviously is not copyrightable in the Library of Congress or with BMI, and what can be paid is things that are a mix. Human works created without AI obviously can be copywritten. Human created works assisted by AI is copyrightable. Let's say using ChatGPT or another AI tool to suggest a song or rhyme, generating chord progressions, or using AI to transcribe a melody or convert a voice memo into sheet music is copyrightable. Human works with partially AI generated content, which is something I'm going to play for you, and I started playing it last week, is something that we can, let's say I have a song and I want to hear it sound like Taylor Swift or something. I'm playing guitar, I've written the words, I've written the chords, I throw it over to Suno or one of the other AI music companies, and it helps flesh out something that I've created, the words, the melody, the chords, and everything, but fleshes it out more. And as it says, prompt-only AI-generated works, BMI does not accept registration for works that are entirely generated by AI, using only prompts without a meaningful human creative contribution. And examples are using platforms like Suno or Udio to enter text prompts and generate complete songs without adding original human-created lyrics, melodies, or instrumentation. So anyway, you get the idea. We're really in a transformational time right now. And I'm going to segue right now to something that really spurred me to have this conversation. It's a song that I wrote. And the wonderful thing about music, and I had this conversation with Electra today, it doesn't matter when you've written a song. A great song is a great song. Somewhere Over the Rainbow was written in the 1930s. It's still a great song in 2026. So I have this song, and I'll play it, and it segues into what Gary's done and what he does, and he's got, some real wisdom in this area. Where I had a song that I wrote when I was 23. I had a record deal. We did 4 albums. We opened for Tom Petty and the Allman Brothers. Everyone said you're going to be famous in 5 minutes. And then like a stranger just brushing past your shoulders, it just kind of brushed by and turned left. And a lot of people went to work at the mall or for an insurance company. So I wrote the song Wasting My Life Away about poor Larry wasting his life away, dreaming of success. And I'm just going to play you the original that I had recorded in a studio with live players and myself, a rough scratch vocal, so please ignore the pitchiness of it. But this is what it is. anyway, it was the '80s. Thank you. It was modeled after, every breath you take and every vow you break, every claim you stake, every breath you take, I'll be watching. It's got that kind of thing that Sting was doing. So I just felt it sounded kind of wimpy and like wah wah, like. So I threw it at Gary, who's going to explain in a minute what he did, and he took all of my original tracks, kind of played guitar on them as well, because he's a talented guitar player. And the only thing that I need to now do, using this as a template and a blueprint, is really kind of tune up my voice a bit and go in the studio and sing it for real, so that I can release it without any kind of future complication or thing. So this is what came back to me from Gary. Guitar solo. All right. So I was in a cigar. I shared this last week. I was actually in a cigar bar with all these bros, like watching like the soccer or football, and I was like crying because it actually sounds better than I hoped it would sound. So it's just, a moment of time when we all have doubts about like who are we to, there's a famous Marianne Williamson quote that like, who are we to think that we're fabulous and gifted and genius and worthy, and it's for those other people out there, the Nelson Mandelas or the Paul McCartneys of the world. But this song, that was written in the '80s is as timely for all the people right now who have a dream, like all of us here, and we have different dreams. And if you remember, and I'm going to turn over to Gary now, we talked about melody and jumping around, like, like with Elton John and with other things. And I have that promising that I'll change, but never thinking of tomorrow. I know I've been wasting my life away. So it really has this movement in the chorus, and it really is the kind of song that if I could just sing to you, and it really leaps around, and it offsets the verse where it's just more like dun dun da 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 dum, which is not very evolved, and then it bursts in the chorus. So I want to turn it over to my friend Gary now, who has really a modern kind of Motown happening, where I would say, meaning a production line of people that he works with. It's he has a phenomenal output of his own music and videos, and now we're helping him. He's just actually signed to a film and TV agent that I had sent out in the email. He's actually signed an agreement with them to pitch his songs, because he's got so many of them that they need as much of a library as possible, because they get requests all the time. So Gary, do you want to jump in and share your magic with what you do, and maybe starting with what you did with when I gave you Wasting My Life Away, and then segue from there with how it works and how you work with Suno and other things.
Well, hi, everybody. My name's Gary Drano, and dear friend of Larry Dvoskin. He's actually met my 100-year-old mother. And uh, what I did is I approached this from kind of a hybrid point of view, using Suno to fill in the music, but I played guitar on it live and I sampled Larry's voice, which you can now do on Suno. And uh, and then I gave Suno in the style area a very specific prompt of how I envisioned the final product, and of course Larry's lyrics. So this the output of the song actually, I think, meets BMI's guardrails as far as partially human generated. Um, but it was really an easy process. And now the next step is to take it from, and this is for Larry to do, is to take it and get rid of all the AI tracks and replace with real musicians and real instruments and whatnot. And then he'll have something that's bulletproof, because the LLMs behind like Suno are grabbing the music every time you put something up and putting it in their model. So as fast as you put something up, if you publish it, especially, it can leak out in different forms in other people's songs, because Suno only knows what Suno knows. It doesn't have anything original. It's just based on millions of tracks that has been fed into the model. Anybody have any questions about what I did?
Yeah, please
Crickets.
just unmute if you have a question. And
I
oh,
I I
yeah.
have one question about, you said you used Suno's model for his voice. So I have been planning on doing that, but Suno threw up a clause somewhere along the line. I heard from a lawyer that if you do that with your voice, if you clone your voice onto their platform, that they then have the right to use your voice as like one of the models for others to craft songs from using your voice. So, do you know anything about that?
I think that's absolutely true. I think anything that you put on Suno, you're at risk of it getting into their LLM, their large language model.
Yeah.
So uh, I've been bugging Larry I've had his unpublished songs up there for a while, and I've been inviting Larry to pull it down um, to make it least likely that it was going to get plagiarized by somebody else down the line. And
Yeah, my specific concern was the voice. I would hate to
well,
have.
Suno actually changes when you put up your voice sample. Suno actually changes it, so it's not your voice. So as
Okay.
you could tell, the singer in "Wasting My Life Away" wasn't exactly Larry.
Right.
It was a better me.
I've used it the same process for many songs, and doing a similar kind of thing with hybriding basically what comes back, taking the stems from Suno and then uh, sing along with the AI singer and put my own vocal back onto my own tracks. But I'm getting like production elements that, on my own I can't get. I'm not a drummer capable of doing studio drum work, or a bass player. So using it as a hybrid, like you were talking about, is like the most intriguing for me. But like I say, I wanted to do the voice clone, but what stalled me was the worry that somebody else could take my voice and put it on their song and have me singing material.
They would take Suno's representation of your voice, not
Yeah.
your actual voice. So you're actually pretty safe there.
Okay. I just don't want to be singing on somebody else's record.
Yeah, yeah,
It, can,
understood.
can you explain, Gary, the difference between the free model, the pro,
Oh yeah,
and all of that?
this
Because this is a big deal for people to understand the differences, that of protections and uses that you have at the different models. And Suno, by the way, is the front runner right now that more people are using. It's the main, it's like when Facebook started, everybody went over to Facebook from MySpace and others. Suno is the number one right now.
Suno's got something that none of the other platforms have is they have a community where people share their songs with you. They like your songs. They follow you. You can follow them. And it's quite a vibrant community. And none of the other platforms have anything like that that I know of. I just want to bring it up. There is uh, a platform out there that was called The Producer, and it's now called Flow AI, and it has the cleanest AI tracks you can get, but you can't get the production quality out of it because it's all prompt driven, like Refusion is, that you can get out of Suno, where you could define to the nth degree in either the style area or with headers on top of your lyrics what you want the song to do. And you have a lot of production control with Suno, which Marika, to a degree, you do. Suno, you have 1,000 words that you can use in the style prompt, um, but it really uh, gets most of its direction from the first 200 to 300 words. So uh, there's that.
Now, Gary, and I want, if anyone else has a question, Gary's really, I've met a number of people who are really dialed in. And just so you know, everybody listening, we're not like pirates here. A year ago, I went to see a talk by Harvey Mason Jr. is the current president of the Grammy Academy, and he's worked with everyone: Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Diana Ross, Celine Dion. He calls himself the Diva Whisperer because he works with these great singers. And at that time, he told everyone, point out, I'm at home messing around with Udio or Suno or this thing or whatever has kind of around or has come and gone, because he said it's my job, leading the world's premier musician organization, to really understand what's happening and what's out there and be ahead of it, not be resistant like so many people are in the world to anything new, or especially corporations, anything that disrupts them, they see as a threat. He was leaning into it to really understand, not necessarily for him to start just telling Madonna, I want to do AI music with you or something on his spare time, but to really understand all of the key points so that it can be used as a tool. Gary, when you send me, an incredible amount of diverse music, and that's really beneficial for people like the film and TV world that one day might need like a blues rock barroom song, and the next need like a very subtle Sarah McLachlan female singer songwriter. And you have teams. When you start a song, and I know there's no one typical way, but what's your process? Like you just wrote a song for Liz, his lovely partner. What was that process like for you in writing the song for
Uh,
Liz?
with that song, I wrote the lyrics first and then came up with an idea on the guitar. And I shared it with my production team, and then all of us got to work on it individually. And then we came back together because, today you could ship a WAV file and a stem uh, just as easily remotely as you could do it as if you were in the studio. So I have a production team that's based in Australia and Ukraine, and they're all just world class musicians. So I started out with a lyric idea, came up with a guitar verse for it, and then I got to work with my great friend and partner Chris Zupa, and we hammered out the arrangement, put it into Guitar Pro, then got the Guitar Profile out to the other musicians. They played their parts. Then it went to our engineer who engineered it, and he also masters. He's kind of a freak. Most people don't do both, but he does both. And that's how that song came together. No AI.
It's a beautiful song. Do you have, if you want to screen share, I'd love for people to see the video and hear this is, if you feel like it, if you feel comfortable doing that. And I will pause the recording.
I'm on
So,
my I'm like a fish out of water.
oh, okay. It's all right. I mean,
Let me,
just you don't have to do it. Take a moment, and I'm gonna share some other thoughts while you're looking for it. What Gary is doing is there's no one way. I mean, for instance, have a team of musicians in New York, and I love to actually physically get in the studio, especially for the bass, drums, guitar, keyboard, basic track recording with the person that I'm recording with, because it's fun, and I just love the fun of getting in. Um, Electra's here, and we're going to be working on some music together. And there's something that magical that happens when we're all in the room together. Now, after that, if I'm putting on a little keyboard thing, or I'm tuning a vocal, or even if I'm doing backgrounds, we don't all have to be in the same spot. I have people who are so good, similar to what Gary has talked about, where I have a friend who sings with Nile Rodgers, and she's out on tour right now, and she has a studio with her, and I mean, she can sound like Janis Joplin with a ballsy, bluesy voice, or she can layer like 20 different parts on, like an entire gospel choir from Harlem, and do that and send it back to me. So it doesn't have to all be in one place, and it doesn't have to all be remote. I love the hybrid thing of finding experts and using them. In my case, I have a mastering guy, and this is a wonky studio thing that some of you may or may not know, and I'm happy to share. But I have a guy who has been has mastered many, and mastering, just for anyone who doesn't know, is just the final touch. Like making sure the bass and the treble and the voice, everything is balanced. And if you're doing a couple of songs that they're all the same volume, so one song isn't way louder and the other is softer, like it just evens out it. And I have somebody who does a digital version, but also runs off the mix to a what's called a half-inch tape. And by putting it onto the tape, it suddenly just I can't describe it. It's almost as much a feeling as a sound. It just warms it up. It makes it sound like you're listening to a great vinyl record, but with the same pristine quality that it's been recorded to digitally. So that's something that I always do, and it costs me extra, but the only thing that matters in the end is the quality of the music, and I want to go that extra length so that the quality of the music is wonderful and will sound as good in 20 years from now as it does today. So
I found the video, Larry.
all right, and I think you can share screen with us.
Let me see here. How do I share?
At least on my screen along the bottom, there is a little arrow pointing up,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
says share
I
screen.
got it. I got it.
I just
Oh no! Wait a
no.
minute. No, I got it. I got it.
Sometimes I have to give you
Yeah, I think you have to give me permission.
permission. Share settings. See, this is what happens. This is what happens. Looking at the host tools.
Yes.
Um,
Plans of
um,
men and mice.
you know, gosh darn it. Um, you see, we're talking about the latest technology, and we're like, how do I share this? Breakout rooms, live stream, meeting info. See, this is the first and last time I'm going to host tools for share. Oh, I see. Okay. Multiple participants can share. So it's set now. You can go ahead and request sharing. I just love the song, and he wrote it for his sweetheart, so we have to play it. And anyone else who wants to play music, please let me know.
And make sure you turn on sharing sound high quality, or we won't hear the sound from the
Well,
video.
unfortunately,
I'm turning
yeah,
it back on now.
unfortunately, with Larry sharing it from a screen, you weren't getting a seamless representation of the video. It was choppy um, but the real video is pretty seamless.
Well,
And
the thing that I saw, I mean, and so I'm driving a car, so I didn't get to look at much of the video anyway, but I did look a little bit, and I saw some of the words were, they were the standard, generative graphic generation is not great at doing words because they tend to sort of start making up symbols and shapes and stuff. And I saw some of that.
AI artifacts.
Yep, yep. And so that that's just one of the ways that you can it used to be that people had 8 fingers, and they've gotten much better at that, but words they're still not great with. So it's just one of those things that is you look at it and it's pretty obvious that it's an AI generated video, which is fine. But it's the perception that when people see AI in content, they assume, okay, this is AI content, and
they
because you put the effort into you pay your production staff to actually go and actually produce the music without AI, so that's obviously important to you in that way. I'm curious, where whether you would feel any concern about people sort of assuming that the rest of it is AI as well.
I don't, and the song's 3 years old, so the cat's been out of the bag for a long time with the song, so I'm not concerned with it.
Okay.
Yes, so segueing, because Chris, who was just speaking, Chris Evans, who's joined us for a couple of weeks now, thanks to our oracle, I believe Tony, the silent oracle of our master classes here. Chris and I had some conversations about technology that were really enlightening for me because he's worked in Silicon Valley for many years and is a really talented musician and understands technology from a maybe from a different angle than I do as a pure like classically trained keyboardist who took vocal lessons for years from everyone from the coach of the English National Opera to Katie Agresto's New York's big rock star coach and playing guitar. And Chris, you had some thoughts about how, even with all the noise and smoke about AI, how it can never fully just absolutely replace the human creativity. And I just would love for you, if you don't mind, Chris Evans, sharing some of your thoughts with us, because a lot of people are they just hide in fear, and you have a much more broad perspective.
Well, I mean, so first of all, AI is based on models that are based on things that have happened, obviously, right? In Suno's case, they've taken millions of, unlicensed tracks and built their model from that. And, and so each service builds off of whatever. And what the model will give you is variations on what it's seen. Yeah, what it can't do is give you things that it hasn't seen, right? So it can't create something that is new, but it can create things that are very similar to things that exist already. And so, if you're trying to create something that is just like, and in a lot of cases, this is like what I want to do. I want something that sounds just like a Taylor Swift thing. It can do exactly like Taylor Swift because it was trained on Taylor Swift. They won't say that, but it was. But when it comes to, I want you to do something totally new. I'm trying to remember the name of this new band that's using micro-tuned guitars and stuff like that. It probably won't know how to do that because there isn't much of that out there, and so it won't be one of those things, right? And so if you're trying to do something totally new, AI is probably not the right tool for you because it can't do new, but it can do derivative very well. And so, and I think the thing that you start to see is that over time, people are looking for something new, right? Even without AI, there's 100 and something thousand new tracks being put up there per day. That's not AI. And, somewhere in there's stuff that's very new, and somewhere in there's an awful lot of stuff that's not. We don't have a shortage of music, even without AI. And with AI, there's even less of it. But if you want to do something new, AI is just not the tool for that, right? Generative AI is not the tool for that. And that's going to take a human person saying, I'm going to do something that hasn't been done before, and probably a ton of work to figure out something that is never been done before and is interesting. You can do weird burps into a phase shifter, and maybe that's new, but that's probably not interesting. So I think it's one of the things that's sort of understanding what you can do and what you can't do with these tools, and what is it you're trying to accomplish with that. It won't be creative, right? It'll be it'll build off of things it'll make it sound like something that already exists in some way, because that's what it knows. I'll give you an example. I was using Midjourney, same idea, generative AI, and I wanted it to create a picture for me. I wanted to create a picture of a Labradoodle dinosaur. Like, what would a Tyrannosaurus Labradoodle look like? And it could not do it because there is no thing. There is nothing like that that has existed before, right? There weren't any. There aren't pictures of them, and so it could create a lot of cute puppy-looking things. It could create dinosaur things, but it was unable to create the thing I wanted, which is some weird hybrid of a very cute, fluffy, dinosaur-y type thing with giant teeth. And what anybody who's listening to this, if I say make a dinosaur Labradoodle, you probably can think of what that would look like, and it can't because it hasn't existed before, and that's not what it does. Same thing goes for music or anything else.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I really appreciate, Chris, your experience that has led you to kind of have this kind of predictive thing that it's reminding us. It's really taking, just like everything when I go into Google or ChatGPT, it's really just combing the web for what has been as opposed to what will be. A friend who was supposed to be on, I don't know why he didn't get on. He's probably stuck in his office. I have a friend that I met at a charity called Rockers for Broadway that famous people raise money for some of the charities for actors in the Broadway world. And the year I went, Pete Townsend showed up because Tommy was on Broadway, and he played these great songs from Tommy, like Pinball Wizard, just on the guitar. And this guy is a wealth manager for music and sports, and has been voted #1 on Wall Street for his firm. And he had a very interesting contrarian point of view, and it was in my newsletter that I send out, that his idea was the difference between a poster of the Mona Lisa and the real Mona Lisa. That, as like we just saw earlier, as Deezer is saying, that half of its music every day is AI created, and people throw the words AI slop around. As it's more and more of that, we're contrarian creatures by nature, and it literally said it makes the very possibility that someone like Chris Anthony or Tony or Danny or Electra or Rob or myself or Chris Evans, like the real Mona Lisa. And his job is predicting the future because he's a wealth manager. So he's looking at companies that you've never heard of and wondering, if I put my clients, $100,000 here, is it going to grow in the future? So his crystal ball of the future is that rather than being afraid of being replaced, it actually makes this sacred experience of human beings something more valuable than less. So
his case is interesting, though, because his case is actually, financial modeling is based on past behavior, right? So all of those types of things are actually trying to do exactly what AI is great at, which is look at the vast amount of data, what's happened in the past, and in similar situations, what do you think will happen, right? And so there's nothing creative in that particularly, right? It's trying to literally say, assume that things are going to be like they have been in the past. What comes next? And so that is actually one of those sort of really useful cases for an AI type of tool, because it's not trying to be creative. It doesn't want it. You definitely don't want it to make up something new that's never happened before. But it also will never figure out something that's never happened before. Right?
yeah, it's interesting in that way. Does anyone have a question or a comment they want to jump in? We've been talking a lot. And Electra, I see you kind of pointing, and I don't know if it means you want to unmute or...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll jump in really quick, Larry. Thank you.
Can you
It's
turn your
a
mic
hot
up?
topic.
Is
Yes.
there a way to turn your volume up?
Let me see. Is this a little better?
Now I'm actually just doing all of on my laptop because, if I get into like my podcast studio and I go through all this stuff, my advanced technology makes things just more complicated than less.
Is this any better, Larry?
Yeah, and hi, Kevin McCove.
Oh,
I'm so happy to see you, my brother from another. So please, Lecture, you speak, and then I think Kevin has his hand up here, and I'm so happy he's here.
so awesome. So I just wanted to say, these points are so interesting. And like you say, there's so many things going for a long time, so many aspects. But I guess the elephant in the room, or, for artists and how we take all the knowledge is, for me, anything is transparency from the beginning, right? So if we know that you want to use this tool, let's just use Disney as an example. There's amazing singer-songwriters signed to Disney. I'm sure there's so many remakes of some Aladdin songs and things like this. Can an artist from the very beginning, knowing that what's coming down the pike, an artist, musician, producer, sign off to these companies now that we're in the early phases to make an arrangement, to protect yourself, to, know what they're allowed to do and what you're allowed to do? Does such a thing exist? And are they starting anything like this? That's my thought.
I can actually answer that question.
Yeah, please.
Because so my son actually runs an AI music company that is creating tools for musicians to be able to create their own models, and it's an open source thing, so that's kind of just unique as well, and it's one that's used by a whole bunch of different services. And one of the people who are most interested in it, honestly, are the labels, for two reasons. One, because their technology is not based on models that are based on unlicensed music. That's what the labels want to sue. But secondly, what the labels want to do is kind of the exact thing you're talking about, right? Warner wants to be able to say, Warner wants to make a model of Warner's content and then allow people to purchase, license, whatever, and all those, use those models to create music that is based on, stuff that exists in the Warner's catalog, and then to be able to take that money and keep a lot of it, and also give some of it to the people who created their catalog. So
Right.
that is the exact kind of thing that is sort of uh, the reason that Suno is in sort of its own little dire straits here is that the moments they can do that, then they don't need Suno anymore. And Suno doesn't have the rights to actually do the things with a lot of the things they have. And so it all comes down to, who's going to pay for all the things that are there before. And if they don't need them anymore, then, what happens to this thing that's built on these other things. But the thing you're talking about is exactly what I think the labels want to get to be able to do is sell or license their own models based on the stuff that they actually own.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, because it's still a work in progress in that Warner has done a deal, for instance, with Suno, but in reading my daily insider sort of newsletters that I get from within the business, Warner hasn't really engaged and acted on their sort of licensing partnership. I know myself that I had a version of a Bowie and Brandy duet on the song Let's Dance, and it took Warner Chappell Music almost 2 years to issue me the very first original NFT license to use Let's Dance mixed with Brandy's song Full Moon. And the Bowie estate signed off on it and all this stuff, and the NFTs started crashing, and people started saying, oh, it's just a bunch of hype and bullshit. And suddenly, right when I was releasing this thing that took me 2 years to get the contract signed with lawyers and everything, suddenly the Bowie estate was like, no, don't do this. And they literally called and pulled the plug on everything because they didn't want to be accused of diminishing the iconic nature of David Bowie's image and everything. Whereas before, when NFTs were hot and people were buying pictures of monkeys for JPEGs of monkeys for millions of dollars, it was like they were all in. And so with all of these new technologies, people place placeholders and try to make it work. And it's a really hit or miss thing. And we're in that hit or miss phase now because other companies like Universal haven't signed on. But exactly what Chris said, if Warner's can create their own kind of AI catalog and license it so that the person's voice is used and credited, so that their publishing rights are given in the same proportion as they were, let's say, signed to Warner Chappell Publishing, it's going to work, and it's going to work really well because it's another form basically of licensing IP and content. Kevin, you have your hand up. And hi, Kevin, if you're here with us and you want to unmute and say something. I know Kevin from the Songwriting Academy.
Hey, what's going on, Larry?
Oh, really good to see you, my friend.
It's good to hear you.
Yeah.
Really good to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I came because Tony sent me an invitation. So yes, your Oracle was at work.
The Oracle. I'm just
Yes.
Tony's my new manager. I'm just gonna have him do everything.
Sign him. I was just like some of the stuff that was said. I'll go backwards though. So what Chris was just saying, I'm like, yes, second that, and I think it's a good hedge against that is for like if there's a group of you, if there's a group of anybody, if you have friends or whatever, like start pooling your music. The ability to train your own model, your own like music model, it will come, right? Like Chris is telling you, like, hey, my son's working on this. His son is probably one of like tons of other people who are working on something like this. It'll happen. And you'll want to have your own private stuff. And if there's a collective group of you and you'll have more material to train off of, it'll make better music. And I'm just saying all the music libraries seem to be like putting that into their newer agreements. So I know a lot of music libraries are interested in just licensing a model of their library to the supervisors and like showrunners and stuff that they have connections with so that they can just put the prompt in themselves and get exactly what they're looking for. And then they can attribute it however that library decides to attribute it. So it's coming. And there's a decent way to hedge against it too, or like just prepare yourself. But then the part about like it doesn't like AI not creating anything new. While I do agree with that, I'm also like, but it does put you, and maybe if you've used the tool, because it sounds like a lot of you have, if you use the tool, it puts you in a different mental space and frees up a lot of like mental horsepower to think more creatively. And so I think it is just a matter of time. And when I say matter of time, like matter of time until you hear it, but it probably is already existing now where there is like really, really intricate or interesting new music that is new. Um, but I also want to say that like just because it's not new, like even if you make something that sounds old, it's like it doesn't matter. But you're trying to make something that sounds good. Like you're trying to make something that does something. So as long as you make something that moves someone and does something, it's like, who cares what it sounds like? You know, like we get so wrapped up in these words like quality, you know, and quality can mean, it's such a vague word, right? Like, are we talking about vocal delivery quality? Are we talking about sonic quality? Writing quality, delivery quality, right? Like there's so many different qualities, and the quality that counts is the one that counts for whoever hears it, right? Like we've all been to an open mic or whatever it is and heard somebody who can like barely sing, but they're like really singing their story, and they're singing, they're connected, and you're like, wow, I was moved by that. And it was like on a crappy PA system by somebody who just drank like 3 whiskeys. You know, it's so I wouldn't get like too caught up in that space, and more just like I encourage everyone to continue to be curious using these tools, just because it's truly remarkable, you know, like it really truly is remarkable. And also like just from a very final thing I'm going to say, from a very practical standpoint, it makes sense to learn it because it's just like learning, not comparing it to a doll, but just like any new tool. Like if you learn the new thing, somebody who doesn't know the new thing as good as you will likely pay you to use the new thing on their thing. And so reissue producers are popping up left and right, which is just taking people's old demos or current demos or whatever they are and reimagining them, reissuing the production, and then sending it back out. And that's like that's money. That's like in your hand, something that you can charge for, just like being a mix engineer or a vocal editor or whatever it is. So I think there's a lot of practicality in learning these tools, especially if you have an interest in, you know, like earning a living from creating music.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. It's really interesting because there isn't a single right answer or direction. It's kind of like everywhere, everything all at once. And that you're absolutely right. There are people who are learning skills that are using those. I mean, I know that all of the universities are starting AI courses to teach people how to use things, just like when Ableton came along or drum machines came along. You know, I in the 80s when people started using drum machines, I had a guy, Jerry Murata, come in and play the Lynn drum machine, and it blew me away because I saw him play with Peter Gabriel at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, and here he was in my little home studio in Woodstock playing a drum machine and not the drums, and he's a drummer. So, you know, all of this stuff, you're absolutely right. As sort of like, you know, the lifelong career of a musician is a lot of different things. You know, I have friends of mine that are very famous, and I see them playing. Paul McCartney just played it at the 50th anniversary of Apple, you know, last week, and he's playing stadiums, but he made a detour, I'm sure, for a lot of money, but he uses an iPhone. And, you know, Tim Cook was there, you know, to celebrate him playing for the team, and they can afford it. So it's never a one size fits all in being creative. And I just want to share one or two things and let everybody go because we're running late. And one of the things I love to do, and that's really helped me a lot, is this app called Stems, STEMZ. And, you know, it's similar to what the Beatles used when they had a recording from the 90s with John Lennon, but until this technology came along, they couldn't separate John's voice because all the other instruments were leaking into the mic. And finally, a couple of years ago, they figured out how to take his voice out so that then they could kind of split his voice out and get it to sound good and redo the songs around his voice. And so this example. It's a Latin song, but this is just from the company stems that they shows you what you can do. So I can take the voice out, put the voice back in, take the drums out. Or I can just have like, if I want, I can just have, So this has helped me a lot because, as Kevin was saying, I have a lot of old songs that I recorded years ago, and in fact I had this is another observation. It's not an absolute, but several of the agents that I'm working with for placing songs on film and TV, they really need 80s sounding. They need retro music. And I had one song that sounded a lot like Duran Duran. They're like, we love this song, but Larry, like, we need a different type of voice on it. And so I was able to just take the track, take my voice off, and put on another singer who sounds like Simon Le Bon, and they were very happy with it, and they got it placed. So it's just, it's not an all or nothing thing. There's lots of bits. So I'm gonna end so that you all can get on with your day. And this is the first time we've had a more metaphysical technology discussion as opposed to like looking at lyrics and looking at chord progressions or melody development, which, I think just even the title of doing an AI thing scared a few people away. But next week I'm going to talk about something really important, which is essential for us as creators. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Please go and please come back with the Oracle Tony, who's been inviting everyone. We're going to talk about like building your tribe, your community, because it kind of takes a community, whether it's a collaborator that you're partnering with to write songs, whether it's a producer or a manager or a best friend or somebody who supports you. There's it, as they say, it's together we go far. It's a African proverb, alone we go fast, together we go far. And I can't tell you, one of the benefits of my life right now as a self-employed person is that I've had a lifetime to collect great people who do great work. I have a great mastering guy, and I always listen to my digital master and then my half-inch Ampex tape master that warms it up and gives it depth. And then I have, if I need a Katy Perry song, I have the guy who did the drums for Fireworks for Katy Perry. Or if I need like a piano singer-songwriter, I can hire the whole Billy Joel band in New York because they're all guys I grew up with. So and this is a benefit of my age working for me, not against me, in an industry and a culture that always talks about youth culture this and youth culture that. I can step outside that and create authenticity and excellence. So we're going to talk about that everything is AI and screens and news and deep fakes and all this stuff. And the opposite of that is human connection and authenticity and human emotion. And we're going to get into this idea of how to build community. And I know it sounds touchy-feely, but I'm going to leave you with one last share here, which is something that happened. A really great music artist, Dave Mason, passed away last night. And I know that when I was in 8th grade, going to school, I used to play the song Feeling All Right on the piano, and I used to play songs by Traffic and all these other bands. And after the terrible fire in Maui a couple of years ago, they held a benefit at Alice Cooper's manager's house. They do it every year at New Year's, but there was no piano player, and Sammy Hagar, the singer, is somebody I've written songs with and worked with for years, and he was the host. I said, Sammy, I got to play. He's like, oh man, it's like $10,000 a ticket and all these like rich guys. And I'm like, just put me in. So I started with Drops of Jupiter by the band Train. And then suddenly the other guy said, can you do Alice's songs too? And then they said, but can you do Mick Fleetwood songs? And can you do Dave Mason songs? And I suddenly found myself playing the whole set. And it was a pinch myself moment. And I'm only sharing this with you because it's in honor of all the great music that Dave Mason gave us over the years. And this is just a little 17-second clip of us doing Feeling All Right to send you home with a good vibe. And it's not playing. All right, hang on. And it's not sharing. Let's try that again. Take two. Come on, take two. All right, there it is. Now, how do I do this?
Someone locked the door and took the key. All right. Not feeling too good myself. Feeling all right.
And if you see that, that's Bon Jovi's Richie Sambora, sneaking in like out of the blue all the way on the left. He was just one of the other people as well. And I just have to say that I'm living proof that the dreams you dare to dream really do come true. If you told me 5, 10, 20 years ago that at this age that I would be like literally like standing next to Richie Sambora, Dave Mason, and Sammy Hagar and other people, I'd say you're out of your mind. Like, that's a dream. But I'm really here to tell you that like anything's possible, especially because we are actually really connected via the internet. And I'm going to play this one more time. It's so I did this as a reel, and then I didn't put the reel up yet on Instagram, but I'm going to play it one more time.
Someone locked the door and took the key. All right. Not feeling too good myself. Feeling all right.
Yeah, so there it is. And yes, we just disagree. What a great song. I love that song. And others that he's written. So thank you guys. Go have fun. I've recorded this and I'll put it up online. So if somebody or if you had to jump in and out, we can have that. You can have that to share. And next week again, we're going to really talk about collaborating, building community. I need to kind of, because to be a creative person, it's not just about the creating thing. It's really about all these other aspects, and I want to touch on all of them because we're all in our own way, making our way, rowing our own boat through the world, and then people come and join us and put a power motor on it and everything else. So anyone have any last questions or comments or anything like that before we sign off? All right, have a great day. Much love. Namaste. It's Earth Day. So even if it's wherever you are, if it's night, go out and put your bare feet on the grass or something just to say to our wonderful host, thank you for the air that we breathe and the water we drink and everything else. So God bless you guys. Peace. Thank you.